So the class today, what we're going to look at is how do we graph and find the equations of hyperbolas, not at the origin. If you look at this picture here, the structure actually has a hyperbola shape on both sides of here, so that kind of gives you a real world look at what we could be using these for. So let's look at our first equation. We're going to graph the hyperbola, identify the center, the vertices, the foci, and the axis of symmetry. So if we look at this, some of the first things that we can find is we know that this is horizontal because the x squared terms comes first. So horizontal, we can find our center, which is going to be -1, -2. We know that a squared is always the first one when we're talking about hyperbolas. Doesn't matter whether it's bigger or smaller, it's whatever comes first, comes second. That would be 9. So a is going to be equal to plus and minus 3. B squared is going to be equal to 16. So b is equal to plus and minus 4. C squared, remember, is equal to a squared plus b squared. So you add those together to get 25. So c is going to be equal to plus and minus 5. Now from here, we can find our other things that we need. Our vertices is going to be h plus and minus a and k, since it's horizontal. So if we do our -1 plus 3, we're going to get a positive 2. We do our -1 minus 3, we get -4. The wrong place. There we go, -4. And of course, our k is the same for both, so we got -2 and -2 there. And that's our plus and minus. With our foci, we get h plus and minus c and k. So we've got down here, if we do the same thing, -1 plus 5 gives us 4, and -1 minus 5 gives us a -6, and still our -2's on both of those. Last but not least, we have our axis of symmetry, which is y is equal to k plus and minus b over a, x minus h. Plug in what you know. You've got k is -2, plus and minus b over a, so it'd be 4 over 3. And it'd be x minus h, so it's going to be plus 1. Alright, so now we have all this information. What we're going to do is graph these. Now remember, the difficult part about graphing these is just basically starting at the center. So once you start at the center, you should be able to find everything else. So our center here is -1, -2. So we're starting there. We're going to go on the x-axis, left and right 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Then we're going to go on the y-axis, up and down 4. This gives us our basic box so that we can actually draw our ellipse. So we draw our box. And we draw the asymptotes through each corner in the center, corner, center, and then we can draw a parabola or hyperbola, follow the asymptote, go through the vertex, and back out the other side. Follow the asymptote through the vertex, and back out the other side. And there you have the graph of your hyperbola. Alright, so next one, we're going to take it this way, everybody's favorite, where we have to use our completing the square. So remember, with completing the square, we put things together that are the same. So we got our x's together, they're blank, and of course we've got our y squareds together. Another blank equals our 444, and our 2 blanks after those. So in our first one here, we're going to factor out the 25 so we can get that by itself. We have 25x squared plus 4x plus blank. We're going to factor out a negative 16 here. It's going to give us y squared minus, that's going to give us 6y plus blank equals 444 and 2 blanks. Alright, so half of squared, half of 4 is 2, squared gives us 4 again, and 4 times 25 gives us 100. Half of 6 is 3, 3 squared is 9. 9 times 16, that would give us, let's see, 144. Alright, so we've got 25, completing the square, we got plus 2 squared minus 16 times y minus 3 squared is equal to, and if we do all the math over there, should equal 400. Now, of course, what you're going to do next is divide everything by the 400. It's going to give you x plus 2 squared over 25 goes into 400. 16 times. We got our minus. And this will be over 25, and it's equal to 1. So once again, from here, then just a matter of going through and doing like we just did. You've got your center here. Use your a squared, your b squared to find your vertices, your foci, and your axis of symmetry. Alright, next we're going to look at finding the equation of the hyperbola with the given information. So if I'm given my vertices here, I'm looking at, first thing I want to know is which way is it going. So I look to see what is changing. Here the y values are changing, so of course that means that we're looking at a vertical hyperbola. Alright, then we can find our center. In order to find the center, we use the midpoint formula. And it doesn't matter whether you use the vertices or the foci, you can use either one. So I got negative 3 plus negative 3 divided by 2, negative 6 plus 2 divided by negative 2, and that's going to give me negative 3 and negative 2 for my center. Now if we want to find our A, our B, and our C, we're going to kind of do what we did before. We got 2A is equal to the square root of negative 3 minus negative 3 squared plus negative 6 minus 2 squared. This is going to give us the square root of 64, which of course is going to give us 8. So if 2A is equal to 8, that means A is going to be equal to 4. With our foci, we got 2C is equal to the square root of negative 3 minus a negative 3 squared plus negative 7 minus 5 squared, which is going to give us the square root of 144, which equals 12. So C is going to be equal to plus and minus 6. So in this case, A here, or A squared, is 16. C squared is 36. And of course we can find B squared. B squared is going to be equal to C squared minus A squared, which gives us 20. So using the information we've got here, we know it's vertical, so we know that our y term is going to come first, our x term is going to be next. This is going to be plus 2 because this is going to be our k, and it's going to be plus 3 because there's our h, And remember, it doesn't matter which one. A squared is always the first one of these, so it's got to be 16 there and 20 there. Questions? All right, very similar. Find the equation of the hyperbola with the given information. We got vertices, and here we're given the axis of symmetry. So basically you go through this exactly the same way you did before. The only difference here is this part here. Now remember with this, once again, we got to look to see is it horizontal or vertical. And it has to be horizontal because our x values are changing. So if it's horizontal, we know that y is equal to plus and minus b over a for the slope for our hyperbola. Well, if our slope here is 2, and then we've got b over a is equal to 2, we know that our vertices here are our a term. So we put b over, let's see, what do we got? Our center, -3 plus -9 over 2 and 0. So that's going to give us -6 and 0. That's for our h and k. So this is h, this is k. And we know that h plus or minus a has to be equal to whatever our vertice is here. So if we put that in there, we get -6 plus a equals -3, or a is going to be equal to a +3. So since that's true, we're going to plug that in here. This 2 right here came from there. So that has to be equal to 2. So that tells me b is equal to 6. And if that's true, then b squared, of course, is 36. And down here, a squared is equal to 9. So knowing those things, because remember the 3 things we need to know is our center, our a squared, and our b squared to be able to write this equation. We know that it's horizontal, so this is going to be our x term. And then our y term. Our center is 0 and 6, or 6 and 0, -6 and 0. And of course a squared is 9, and b squared is 36. And there we have the equation.
Emmanuel Horsley to the front lobby, please.
So, first one I want you guys to try is this one. This one you're going to graph the hyperbola given this information, find the center, the vertices, the foci, and the axis of symmetry. The second one you're going to do is this one. Find the equation of the hyperbola given with the given information.